Welcome back to Tips Over Tea. I am Nicole, your host. This is episode 11. We had the great pleasure of speaking with Rachel Turner, who is from the UK. She's an EFT practitioner and a certified functional medicine health coach. We really dove in on autoimmune disease and how she healed herself from it, and we talked about EFT. So if you are someone who deals with autoimmune or you know someone who does, make sure you go grab your tea and listen in. Welcome everyone to this is episode 11 of Tips Over Tea. I am so excited. I've got Rachel here in the UK. It's past tea time for her, so she's gonna just have water with us, which is okay because I always say
Tips Over Tea. I am so excited. I've got Rachel here in the UK. It's past tea time.
my bad. Apparently I had another window open somewhere.
Fine.
Yeah.
We can work with anything.
Yes, we can. So, like I said, bring your drink of choice. She's got water, I've got tea, and we're going to chat. Rachel, thank you so much for being here with me and spending your evening with us. I'm excited to hear what's been good with you and for you to share some of your knowledge with our viewers. Tell me what's new, what's good.
It was really good to see you, Nikki, because we go back, don't we? We train together, and we haven't had a chance to hang out since then. So it's really good to see you. So what's new with me? Here in the UK, lots of good stuff going on, helping people manage their health through lifestyle changes. Bit like you, I get kind of really stuck into the emotional side of things because I feel that that's a really great foundation to our health, is dealing with emotion, because emotion comes into absolutely every single decision in our life, whether it's the food you put in your mouth or how you sleep or the relationships you have, how you feel about your health and your body. So I really love kind of digging in at that level, and that's what helped me with my own health as well, so, and continues to do so. So I love all that stuff.
Yeah, I can imagine, especially like your story. You were diagnosed with an autoimmune that you were able to reverse, which is awesome. But I can imagine that was an emotional time trying to figure all that stuff out. Could you just tell us more about how that came about, how you reversed it? Just share what you feel what's on your heart.
So it was back in 2004. I got suddenly really very ill on holiday, and it took some months to find out what was going on. And some months later, I was diagnosed with a chronic autoimmune disease called ulcerative colitis. If you haven't heard of that one, anyone that's watching, it's similar to Crohn's disease, but it affects a different part of the gut, and it's an incurable disease, or so I was told then. And I was in my mid-20s, newly married, and it all came as a bit of a shock. I didn't really know what life was then going to be like for me, because it's very debilitating. And I just went down the regular route of purely looking at the medication I could take, not really getting any answers as to what I could do for myself. I was told there wasn't anything, nothing would affect it or help it apart from medication, and it was purely genetic, and they still didn't really know the cause. So I followed that route for some years, and I did have some good results from the medication, absolutely, but it was quite a worrying time because we wanted to start a family, and I didn't know how it would impact that kind of thing when I was on so much medication, up to 8 doses of medication throughout the day. Wow. And I was still quite poorly. Ill. Some other American friends laugh at me when I say poorly. Louis, Louis, he laughs at me when I say poorly. Not well. And I think it was I'm just quite a curious person, and I just started to try and research what else could I do for myself, because I couldn't ever accept that it was something I was going to live with for the rest of my life, because I wasn't born with it. So I just told myself, I'm not going to die with this. So somewhere in between, the situation is going to change. So I started to look into different routes, get any information I could. And information back then wasn't as easy to access as now. But I was very fortunate that some people in my family were therapists, and they kind of looked at life slightly differently, and I gradually brought that into my world, with different holistic therapies and looking at how food actually does impact our body. So despite the fact I was told there isn't really anything to do with food, it won't make any difference what you eat, I could see that there were things that I was doing that weren't very helpful. So I started to change my diet. I started to just dabble with some different therapies to see if they would help me feel better in my body, and they did. I wouldn't say that I'm someone that suddenly has like a eureka moment from therapies, but I found that over time, being consistent, my health was starting to get better. We had a family, amazing. My health got a lot better. Then we had quite a big change in our life where we moved to a different part of the country. We had a baby, and then we were expecting our second child, which was amazing. But we kind of moved to a building site, and that was quite stressful. And I had the second baby, and I was still doing pretty good with my health. And then I had to take a course of antibiotics because I got mastitis, which is really common when you're breastfeeding. And within days, I was more sick than I'd ever been with the autoimmune disease that I had thought I kind of kicked into touch previously. And it was absolutely horrific. I plummeted into depression and anxiety, and all the symptoms came back. So the worst symptoms are the utter exhaustion and the bleeding. So you bleed from your bowel all day long and all night. So you don't absorb food, you don't absorb nutrients, you're anemic, you lose weight, you're broken, absolutely broken. And I had a baby and I had a toddler, and we were living on a building site. But it had all been triggered in my mind with this antibiotic. That seemed to be maybe I was under quite a lot of stress, but that seemed to be the absolute, that was like the straw that broke the camel's back. And the violent way it came on within days of taking it was a shocker. So then I realized how we are really impacted by what we put in our bodies. I had no idea up until then. Antibiotics are fantastic for the right reasons, but for someone like me, they are absolutely disastrous. So when I spoke to my consultant, he said with a normal healthy gut, one course of antibiotics can take 2 years. It can impact the gut for 2 years, the environment within the gut. So for someone like me, the impact is far greater because you're already dealing with a really delicate environment that's already got a lot of inflammation and damage. So somehow got myself back from that with even stronger, more intense medications. It wasn't a good time. And fast forward some years, I've been fighting this disease for about 15 years by this point. And I was back to work. I was going back to my career, my 20-year career in IT, and the wheels fell off. The wheels fell off. I got so ill, and I started to have anxiety and panic attacks because what I now realized was I just kept pushing forward, not listening to my body. I was doing more stuff with nutrition, a bit, therapies, but the ultimate thing for me then was I still had a stressful career, and I had a young family, and I was traveling a long way to and from work and managing the school run and running my home, and I wasn't giving myself a break. And then I wasn't eating because of the horrendous symptoms. It's sometimes, and I do not advocate this, it's not clever, but you stop eating because as soon as you start eating, you have the problems. So I went home from the office the day of a really big panic attack, and I never went back. And it was at that point I thought I can't do this anymore. And I was, I think I was about 39, 40 then. Thought this is it, I have to really sort my life out. And that is when I stumbled across functional medicine with an online documentary. And that's when everything seemed to click into place for me. I've been doing a lot of that kind of approach myself naturally. So in the UK, functional medicine is not as commonly known as in the US. It's getting there, but it's nowhere near as commonplace. But I realized that what I've been doing so far, there was a model for, but there were some more things I could do for myself. And it really made me feel empowered because I'd had to give up my career. I felt at quite a low point. I wasn't well. And I'd had this additional level of anxiety, which I hadn't really experienced before. So that was it. I embraced it. I put more, I implemented more stuff into my life. I knew that I was never going to go back to that kind of a career again, and I was done with it. And retrained, which is where I met you. So we're functional medicine health coaches, aren't we? And I also trained as an EFT practitioner, which is known as tapping, which is a fantastic stress reduction technique, which is scientifically proven to help you reverse and deal with all manner of physical and mental issues. And throwing all of that together, I've been well now for some years, no medication, no symptoms, and I feel better now than I've probably felt ever in my life. So, you know, anybody that's watching this with any kind of autoimmune disease, there is always hope, and you can feel better, and you don't need to feel like, just don't believe them when they tell you this is it and you've just got to live with this, because they're closing you down. Always know that you can grow and come out of this situation one way or another.
You said so many things I would love to like reflect on. Definitely I thank you for your diagnosis, and let me see where I can go from here and heal myself. Because and it's not their fault. Like, they don't know, they aren't just, that's not one of the biggest priorities when they go to school, like learning how to work with people individually and figure out what works with them. I love that you decided to take this on, because some people don't really think that they do have a choice outside of what they were told, and then they succumb, and it's sad. So I'm glad that you're there and you can help walk people through that. Have you ever used tapping for yourself? Because I remember you were saying you used it with your kids. So how do you use that, or do you still use that for yourself these days, or with your clients? And tell me more about the tapping for anybody who's not familiar with it.
Yeah, so tapping is I love it. It's fantastic, and I like it because it's a self-help technique, so you can use the basics yourself, and you know, because you use it. I started using it with my kids when one of them couldn't sleep at night. He was quite old. He wasn't a baby, but he was having some stress at school, and it was keeping him awake at night. And I found it in desperation on Google in the middle of the night. And I tried this crazy looking thing with him. And within about a minute, he was asleep and snoring. And he was about 9 or 10. So, you know, he's not a little boy. And I could not believe it. And I thought, well, that's cool. And that was some years ago. And I didn't do much more with it than just use it for the kids when they needed to get to sleep. And gradually I started to help their friends with their issues at school. And then I stumbled across a documentary called Heal on Netflix, which I love. And through watching that documentary and watching an EFT practitioner on there, I was like, oh my God, I need to learn more. I need to train and do this properly, because it's absolutely mind-blowing. So I do use it for myself as a practitioner. I use it every day, even if it's just for 5 minutes. Today, actually, I took myself on a big dog walk in the sunshine, and I was doing some work on stuff from my childhood, which I had a great childhood, but everybody has their stuff. And, you know, there's stuff that I feel I needed to just deal with. And today I thought I'm going to start to dig into that. So on the dog walk, there's no one around here. I live in the middle of nowhere in the countryside. I was doing some tapping on just how I felt as a child. And it's amazing what comes up, because you're working with your subconscious brain when you start tapping on these points in your body. So I'll just show the guys that are watching, because they're going to think I don't know what you're talking about. So there's so many videos for tapping, and I've got loads on my YouTube channel. But you tap on these points, and what you're doing is you're switching off the amygdala in the brain, which is the core part of your stress response. And as you do that, you start to switch from your thinking brain to your subconscious brain. You reduce the cortisol levels, your stress hormone, and you start to bring up stuff in your subconscious which you've buried, and you're doing really well to bury. But this stuff we just don't need anymore. So I found that a really great way to reduce my stress for someone that's quite manic and always wanting to be busy. My mind is always really busy. It helps me just get myself into a really nice calm state. It takes you from that fight or flight mode that we're in all the time in this world back into that rest and digest state, which I know is having a direct impact on my gut, because the gut brain connection is so close. So for me, I use it every day. And with my clients, there hasn't been one client that hasn't gone for the tapping as part of the coaching program that I have.
Mm-hmm.
They've all wanted to use it, even though they're skeptical, and every single one of them has had amazing results.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's why I love having you in my corner, because I can refer my clients to you if they feel like, I tell them about you all the time. So if they feel like they need some tapping, I'm like, I put you in touch with Rachel. She got you. Yeah, because it does work, and I didn't know that, like, the science behind it. I just knew that it works. So I'm glad you shared that part about it. And so back to the autoimmune, because I know a lot of people really do feel hopeless about it. And I love how you correlated to the tapping with the autoimmune, because we don't realize how our gut and brains really talk to each other. You know, they say we have a little brain in our guts. And so if you can reduce some of that stress, and if tapping is your method, that can also help with if you have a digestive autoimmune type disease. Well, autoimmune is usually from a hyperactive immune response anyway, right? Is it most? Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. So if you can get to the rest and digest state a lot quicker, it will definitely help with some of the symptoms. I know you haven't dealt with it in a while. But when you were going through it, did you? And you probably hadn't discovered tapping yet, like right? So I'm curious, like, if you were like having an episode, if you're even able to think about tapping or something at that time, if somebody needs to, like if they're at work and they need to find a way to, like, get themselves to rest and digest, like, would you recommend some, like, some type of technique to get them so that their body is, like, not going crazy on them?
Yeah. I mean, if I'd have been using this back when I was sick, I think it would have, you don't know, do you, how it would have helped, but it certainly would have made me feel calmer, and more in control. So what would I recommend? Firstly, if you're in that flare of whatever autoimmune you're in, which is different for everybody, isn't it? And the severity is different. The one thing I would say is know that it doesn't have to be this way. So you can use tapping for it, absolutely. You'd need to just learn the basics, as in know which points to use and where to start and what to say to yourself, because it is a communicative therapy where you are using words. You can say it in your mind. So if you're at work and everything's falling apart, you don't have to be saying stuff out loud, and you can take yourself off to the restroom and do it for yourself for a few minutes, and that can make the world of difference, because in seconds you are changing the chemistry in the brain. It's a really, really powerful tool, and there is over 150 studies that support it. There is a lady called Dr. Peter Stapleton, PETA, and if anybody is interested in this tapping thing that I'm talking about, she is devoting her life to research into how it can be used and how powerful it is. So she's fascinating to follow. She's an Australian lady. She's very straight talking. There's also a guy called Dr. Dawson Church, who's an English guy. He has a lot of videos. There's also another one called Tapping with, he's an American guy, Tapping with Greg, I think. He's really famous. But, you know, and then you can always have a look at mine. But you need to kind of get those points in your mind, practice it a little bit at home, and then use it yourself wherever you need to, when you're out and about, or if you're at home and you're really struggling, because it can take you from a completely different space in your head and in your body to somewhere else. And when you're in the middle of a flare, you are so consumed with it, you feel like it's completely, you're drowning in it, and there is no choice, and you can feel angry and resentful and out of control. And that's the one thing I would probably say about maybe the conventional medicine approach. You do not feel like you have any control, that you are always under the command of some practitioner or another who don't know you personally and what you've gone through. So using something like this helps you bring your power back, and you can do that in minutes.
I love that. And I know I know everyone's different if they have ulcerative colitis. What do you attribute diet-wise to helping you reverse your diagnosis?
Yeah, that's a good question. over the years, I've changed it quite a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I use muscle testing to check that what I'm doing is the right thing, which has been really effective for me.
Mm-hmm.
And you can find that through various different therapists. I don't, one of the big ones was cutting out gluten, which isn't surprising. That's quite a common one, and dairy. I avoid soy unless it's high quality and I don't have very much of it. I introduced a lot more plant-based foods, lots of fruits and vegetables, well, certainly a lot of vegetables. I have also brought in specific supplements that are that suit my body, so I wouldn't kind of recommend them for anyone else because it's very personal, isn't it? As you know, depending on your current state of health and your diet and the medication you're on and the diagnosis you might have. So I do take supplements, lots more water. I've cut out a lot of. I've still got a bit of a sweet tooth, but I've cut out a lot of processed foods. Don't really have any of those anymore, and lots of sugary food. Oh, and no caffeine either, apart from an occasional decaf coffee, because that's a big one for gut issues. Because the caffeine has a laxative effect, and if you've got a bowel disease, you don't need that help. You're already having enough issues. So the caffeine, and it stimulates us stress wise, so it can increase our stress response, and if you're already in a state of inflammation, you don't really need to be putting your body under more stress. So caffeine was another one that I've cut right down to just the occasional decaf coffee or a green tea.
Yeah, I was going to ask about the green tea because I know it's naturally caffeinated, and I was wondering but it has other health benefits. I mean, so does coffee too. But I was wondering if that was a thing effective.
Yeah. I'm going with it and I'm good on it, but if somebody else may not be, there's a lot of science behind green tea being really good, isn't there? If you get a good quality green tea, the antioxidants in it are amazing. They've done studies with breast cancer recovery and also risk of breast cancer for those that have never had breast cancer but have the genes for it, and also those that have had surgery, and their risk has dropped from drinking regular green tea. Also, this was something I learned only recently, which is a really good tip. It's a fantastic mouthwash. So if you make a green tea and let it cool, you can use that as a mouthwash for like the next couple of days.
Love that.
Because it's antimicrobial.
Yeah. Done. No need to buy mouthwash ever again. Got tea right around the corner. That's awesome. So we've got just about 8 minutes left. Is there anything that you would like for someone to take away, some tips with tapping or with like diagnosing their autoimmune, like what questions they may be able to ask their doctor, or how, what would they take away if their doctor doesn't really point them in any kind of direction to help them heal themselves?
Yeah. Okay. So I would say that the one thing I would say is never lose your power, never give it away to somebody in a medical position, because it's very easy for us to go and see our doctor or our specialist and feel like they know everything and we mustn't ask questions or question their decisions. Step into that room and know that you are the boss of your health and you know your body best. I'd never realized that until probably the last few years, that I know my body best. Somewhere in me, inherently, my body knows how to heal itself. It's just that this brain of mine hasn't got a clue, but there are ways of tuning into yourself. So if you're going to your doctor or your specialist and they're not really giving you the answers you're looking for, just be really honest with them and say that you want to find out more. Ask them the questions. If they don't have the answers, don't be disappointed. Like you said, they only can study so much. They can't be the answer to everything because autoimmune is hugely complicated and individual. Then you can start to cast your net wider. You can look for functional medicine practitioners because they will start to ask you questions going right back to your birth and before, which is hugely important. And when we were training, Nikki, it was like when I started to do my timeline, I was like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Was it any wonder that I got that sick with everything that had gone on in my life medically and whatever? So and just doing that starts to make you feel almost like, okay, this wasn't just like fate. There were reasons for this. And once you realize there were reasons for this, you can start to look at how you reverse it. Then there's so many amazing therapies out there. Amazing. And I would say that everybody is different. Be open-minded, never dismiss anything until you've tried it and stuck to it for a while. For me, kinesiology, craniosacral therapy, and EFT have been life-changing. For somebody else, it might be acupuncture, McTimony, and deep meditation. So just don't rule out anything. This stuff has been around for a long time, in some cases thousands of years, and there is a reason for it. And just because there isn't all the science behind it doesn't mean it doesn't work. So just have fun with it. Speak to therapists. They could well have actually dealt with people that are in a very similar position to you with your diagnosis. Of course, the reason why you've got it may be different to them, but they understand and they can empathize with your position. And never, ever, ever give up hope. Never think this is it and this is my life from here on, because it does not have to be that way. Nobody knows how long you may get sick or be sick, but know that there is always a light at the end of that tunnel, because as soon as you start thinking, I've had it, that's it, my life is never going to be the same again, you are literally going to have to help feed that thought process, and thoughts become things.
Yep. And it'll exacerbate whatever you're going through and make it worse. So yeah, very good tips. And so I hope that if anyone who has been struggling, that you've given them some extra hope and they're like, word, I can do this. I love that. Well, awesome, guys. If Rachel's information will be on the YouTube channel in the comments information, or whatever that section is underneath where you have all the information. I will put her contact information there. Get in touch with her for tapping, any autoimmune questions. Of course, neither one of us are doctors. We can't diagnose or anything, but we can certainly help you navigate, some choices and things like that. Well, she'll be better with the autoimmune part than I would. But yes, please get in touch with her. I want to thank everyone for watching, whether you're watching us live or you catch us later. Please be sure you subscribe to her YouTube channel, subscribe to mine, share with anyone who you think could use this information. And until next time, I want to say thank you, and I will see you guys next Sunday. Ciao.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye. Thanks again for tuning in. I hope you got some really good nuggets out of that call. Please share it with anyone who could benefit. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the bell so you can be notified every time we upload a new video or when we go live. I'll see you next time.